Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So I have Racism Pineapple here, not because we're talking about racism, but because I'm lonely because I haven't put up my neon yet, so she's just here visiting. Today we're going to be talking about the Transabled community. God. So when I first heard of Transabled, I immediately thought of Tumblr because that's where a lot of bullshit comes from. Now, to be fair, I'm sure Transabled people are on a bunch of different platforms. I just choose Tumblr because I've been on it for a longer time than any other platform. So when I first heard of Transabled, my thought was like, it's someone who's trans and also disabled, because what else would it really be, is what I thought. But then cold, hard truth hit me in the face and was like, no, we're about to disappoint you. So according to Tumblr, transabled people are able-bodied people, like myself, for example, who identify as disabled. So there's nothing wrong with them physically, but they're deciding that they want to be, say, in a wheelchair or be blind or deaf, and they just decide to identify as that. I looked on Tumblr and thankfully a lot of the posts were like, this is bullshit, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard, which, to be fair, yeah, it is. It becomes more interesting when I found out some other information about what it actually means to be transabled, because it's not a black and white thing. So let me show you what the Tumblr Transabled is before we get into the layers of the onion. So someone says, my experience as a transabled. People have always had people be very rude to me about being transabled. It's not that hard to understand. I just think able-bodied people are privileged assholes, and I've decided that I was too privileged. So I decided to stop using my legs to remove ableism. Every able-bodied person is an asshole who deserve to burn and die for their privilege. I don't understand why people don't get it. So in conclusion, if you're disabled or transabled like me, I love you. If you're abled, you're a bigoted, ableist asshole who should burn. Now, of course, I thought, okay, this is satire, like, haha, little like, not a chuckle, but a little like, you know, when you're just like, then I was like, wait, I'm on Tumblr. Let me go see this person's profile. Now, I don't want to show their profile because I found out they're 13, so I was like, they still have time to change. I also found that they identify as plantkin. So my idea of this being satire kind of melted away, because if they think they're a plant, transabled is no long shot from there. Now, I think that most people that are transabled in a non-satirical, non-ironic way, I think they've changed hashtag, because most of the posts were saying that it was ridiculous and they were calling out transabled people for being ridiculous, which, to be fair, is true. I was like, okay, there must be more to this. Someone on Tumblr mentioned that there's such a thing as BIID, which is Body Integrity Identity Disorder, which was formerly known as Amputee Identity Disorder, and it's a psychological disorder wherein sufferers feel they would be happier living as an amputee. It is typically accompanied by the desire to amputate one or more healthy limbs to achieve that end. Let's underline the fact that this is a psychological disorder. Then I was like, okay, so maybe some of these transabled people actually have BIID, which I'm not judging them for that. Then I was like, okay, but let's see how many people actually have BIID, because I was like, I don't think a majority of the population have it, and I surely don't think that all these people who claim to be transabled actually have that or are actually even diagnosed with it. So I found more information on BIID.org to find out like what the percentage is, and it says, when a person's idea of how they should look does not match their actual physical form, it can be caused by body integrity identity disorder. This condition affects a small percentage of the population and is commonly manifested by a desire to have an amputation of a specific body part. In most cases, the limb the person would like to remove is actually in healthy working order, and there are no physical problems with it. Many psychologists and neurologists have ventured theories into what causes this type of thought. The common leading idea is that body integrity disorder, or BIID, occurs when the brain is not able to provide an accurate plan of the body. In this case, the brain sees the offending limb as being foreign and not actually part of the person, thus the desire to have it removed. I didn't find much else, and I didn't find any concrete actual numbers about BIID, simply because it seems to be a new thing that's being explored, and it takes a long time to publish things. It takes a long time to do comprehensive, even longitudinal studies. So it says a small percentage of the population. So let's say less than 5%. If it's less than 5%, to me, it's hard to believe that somehow a lot of that 5% is on Tumblr and is posting about their transabled / BIID situation. So for me, it's hard to believe that more than maybe one person with actual BIID is on Tumblr. So I'm just gonna leave that there. So then I found an article on the National Post that's called "Becoming Disabled by Choice, Not Chance. Transabled People Feel Like Imposters in Their Fully Working Bodies." I need to preface this. If someone has BIID, I'm not talking about them in this video. I'm not talking about people with a real psychological disorder. I'm talking about people who are just a regular Joe who decides that for some reason they want to be disabled and want to make their life harder for themselves, or they want victim or oppression points. I don't know why people do that, okay? I have no idea why in the world someone would want to make a mockery of being disabled by just saying, "Oh yeah, I'm disabled today, can't get up," or something. Like, that's fucked up. The thing that really bothers me is that I don't think that people who are transabled want to make fun of people who are actually disabled in whatever which way, but that's still is the outcome, because realistically, if you have a friend who's in a wheelchair and is paralyzed, how are you, as a person who can walk and do a bunch of things that they can't do, gonna sit in a wheelchair and say that you're the same as them and not think that that's the most stupid thing you've ever done? I genuinely want to know. It's just, okay, let's just read this article. When he cut off his right arm with a very sharp power tool, a man who now calls himself One Hand Jason let everyone believe it was an accident, but he had for months tried different means of cutting and crushing the limb that never quite felt like his own, training himself on first aid so he wouldn't bleed to death, even practicing on animal parts sourced by a butcher. My goal was to get the job done with no hope of reconstruction or reattachment, and I wanted some method that I could actually bring myself to do, he told the body modification website ModBlog. For me, it's already strange that he would be talking with a body modification website, because when I think of body modification, I don't think of chopping off an entire limb. If this person is really someone who suffers with BIID, wouldn't they try and say that it was, you know, like, mentally taxing for him to have this limb, or like he felt like he wasn't in the right body in a type of way? Like, the way in which this is framed, also the fact that he decided to call himself, what is it, One Hand Jason? Like, all of this seems like a joke to me. I can't really imagine someone with a psychological disorder getting rid of this like burden that is their arm, for example, and then being like, "Oh yeah, I'm One Hand Jason and I'm talking to a body modification blog." Like, body modification has a lot of different categories, sure, but I didn't know amputation was part of it. Let me know if you knew that, because apparently it is. Also, obviously, yeah, if we're being literal, amputation is a type of body modification, but all that I've seen of body modification has been like scarification, tattoos, piercings, and so forth. I just feel like this is a very extreme thing to put under the category of body mod. It said his goal was to become disabled. See, now this is what fucks me up, because it's like, if he had BIID, his goal wouldn't be to become disabled. His goal would be to remove the grievance and the annoyance and like the repulsion that he has with his arm, right? Because we discussed before that having BIID means that the part of the body that you have that problem with is like foreign. So really you're going back to like your natural form, right? But saying that his goal is to become disabled makes me feel like it has nothing to do with BIID, or, you know, like that like strong sensation that something's up with your body and you need to fix it. People like Jason have been classified as transabled, feeling like imposters in their bodies, their arms and legs in full working order. We define transability as the desire or the need for a person identified as able-bodied by other people to transform his or her body to obtain a physical impairment. The person could want to become deaf, blind, amputee, paraplegic. It's a really, really strong desire. Researchers in Canada are trying to better understand how transabled people think and feel. Clive Baldwin, a Canada Research Chair in Narrative Studies who teaches social work at St. Thomas University in Fredericton, has interviewed 37 people worldwide who identify as transabled. Most of them are men, about half are in Germany and Switzerland, but he knows a few in Canada. Most crave an amputation or paralysis, though he has interviewed one person who wants his penis removed. Another wants to be blind. Okay, so there are a couple problems here. Let's agree to this. If you have a psychological disorder where you essentially need to cut off a limb to feel okay in your body, I don't feel like in an interview it would be worded as they wanted to become disabled, because that seems like the goal is different, right? Because in one sense, the psychological disorder one, you're doing it for your own mental well-being in a weird way. And the other one, you're just doing it for whatever stupid reason, because maybe it's like, what, the trend of the week or something? It's kind of like comparing an actual trans person who experiences dysphoria to a person who just randomly decides they want to be the opposite gender just for the kicks. It's a very different thing. One is legitimate and the other one is a flavor of the week type of bullshit, which is what this seems to be honest. Many people, like One Hand Jason, arrange accidents to help achieve the goal. One dropped an incredibly heavy concrete block on their legs, an attempt to injure himself so bad an amputation would be necessary, but doctors saved the leg. He limps, but it's not the disability he wanted. It's not the disability he wanted. Why?
I ruin it. Because I had a good polio backstory that chicks were gonna totally
cares about polio or backstories or withered legs or whatever.
I bet you $1 million if I had talked to a girl
for God's sakes, $1 million, Dennis, what are you talking?
All right, then what are we doing?
You know, like, as much as I feel like these people don't have BIID, I do think they have something else that needs to get checked out, because the fact that you're willing to get a block of concrete and drop it on yourself, like, that is terrifying. Not to mention dangerous, because you could always get someone else hurt in the process depending on how it is you're gonna perform this accident. Now this is where I get actually really annoyed. So it says, some of his study participants do draw parallels to the experience many transgender people express of not feeling like they're in the right body. Baldwin says the disorder is starting to be thought of as a neurological problem with the body's mapping rather than mental illness. So here again, it's like they're conflating all this transabled under one umbrella, because like I said, if there are two distinct roads, one of which there's the psychological disorder, BIID, compared to people who just want to be disabled for God knows what reason that's not actually a legitimate mental health problem and is just a fad or something that they want to do. It's not the same thing, and it can't be compared to being trans, because if you just feel like doing something, that's not like being trans and having dysphoria. So the fact that they're putting it all under one umbrella is messy, to say the least. But anyway, let me know what you guys think about this. Let me know what you think about BIID versus like the other transabled people who are just doing it, you know, to maybe get a reaction out of people. Thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you to my patrons as always, and let's get right into the fan art.